Why does heaven feel silent when your heart is screaming the loudest? When your prayers echo back at you like you're talking to the ceiling? When you're fighting battles no one sees, and God seems shockingly quiet in the middle of it? You expected clarity, direction, a sudden breakthrough, but instead you're met with stillness. And that silence can feel like abandonment if you don't understand what might actually be happening beneath the surface. The first hidden reason God feels silent in your struggle is that He is strengthening your faith beyond feelings. You learn to recognize His presence through emotion, through goosebumps, through moments of obvious confirmation. But faith that depends on sensation is fragile. And Hebrews 11 verse 1 reminds you that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, not the evidence of things felt. When God removes the emotional reinforcement, it's not rejection, it's refinement. He is training you to trust His word over your mood, His promises over your perception, and that process can feel like darkness because your spiritual senses are being retrained. Think of Job, who cried out in Job 23:8-10 that he could not find God anywhere, yet declared, "He knows the way that I take. When He has tested me, I will come forth as gold." And that is the shocking paradox. God can feel absent while being intensely present in shaping you. The second reason is more uncomfortable. God may be silent because He has already spoken, and you're hoping for a different answer. You've prayed for direction, but Scripture has already given you principles, and the Spirit has already nudged you. Yet you're waiting for something louder, clearer, more dramatic. Psalm 119 verse 105 says, "His word is a lamp to your feet, not a floodlight to your entire future," which means He often gives just enough light for the next step, not the whole roadmap. And when you refuse the step you already see, heaven doesn't need to repeat itself. Silence can be a warning that obedience has been delayed, and obedience delayed eventually dulls sensitivity. The third hidden reason is that your struggle is developing spiritual endurance, and endurance is built in tension, not in comfort. James 1 verse 2-4 calls you to consider it joy when you face trials because testing produces perseverance, and perseverance must finish its work, which means the process cannot be rushed just because it's painful. You want immediate relief, but God may be more concerned with lasting transformation, and the silence you interpret as indifference may actually be intentional restraint, allowing pressure to shape depth in you. Romans 5 verse 3-5 reveals a progression. Suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put you to shame. Yet that chain only forms if the suffering is allowed to run its course. If God instantly rescued you from every hardship, you would celebrate relief, but miss resilience, and resilience is what carries you through future storms that are even greater. The fourth reason is deeply personal. Sometimes God feels silent because He is drawing you into deeper intimacy, not surface-level dependence. When you first came to Him, He may have answered quickly, comforted, obviously, affirmed openly, because you were learning His voice, but maturity changes the dynamic. In relationships, silence does not always mean distance. Sometimes it signals trust, sometimes it invites pursuit, sometimes it exposes how much you desire connection beyond convenience. Jeremiah 29 verse 13 promises that you will seek Him and find Him when you seek Him with all your heart. And the hidden implication is that half-hearted seeking may not experience the fullness of encounter. Silence can provoke hunger, and hunger can deepen pursuit, and pursuit can transform a casual believer into a desperate seeker. The fifth reason is one many believers quietly avoid. Unconfessed sin can create perceived distance, not because God moves away, but because your awareness of Him dims. Isaiah 59:2 says your iniquities have separated you from your God, not in terms of His love, but in terms of fellowship. When you carry compromise, resentment, pride, or secret habits, your spirit becomes less sensitive, and the silence you feel might actually be the muffled sound of conviction you've learned to ignore. God's silence can sometimes be a mirror, forcing you to examine what you've tolerated, what you've justified, what you've hidden even from yourself, and that examination, though uncomfortable, is mercy. Yet there is another dimension you cannot overlook: spiritual warfare. Daniel prayed for 21 days before an answer arrived, delayed by unseen resistance. Daniel 10:12-13, which means heaven heard him from day one even when earth felt unchanged. What if your silence is not denial but delay? What if your prayer has already moved something in the unseen realm and you're interpreting the waiting as rejection? Ephesians 6:12 reminds you that your struggle is not against flesh and blood, and that means the quiet season may be a battleground you cannot perceive. And here is the deeper, more unsettling truth. Sometimes God feels silent because he is inviting you to love him for who he is, not for what he does. When blessings flow, it is easy to praise, but when they pause, your motives are revealed. Would you still follow if the miracle tarries? Would you still trust if the healing delays? Habakkuk 3:17-18 declares that even if the fig tree does not bud and there are no sheep in the pen, yet I will rejoice in the Lord, and that kind of worship is forged in silence, not spectacle. You may be in a season where God is testing the depth of your devotion, not to trap you, but to strengthen you, because shallow roots cannot survive fierce winds. Silence forces roots to grow deeper. Without constant visible reinforcement, you either drift or dig, and that choice shapes your future. Remember 1 Kings 19, when Elijah expected God in the wind, the earthquake, the fire, but the Lord was in the gentle whisper. Sometimes what you call silence is simply a voice too soft for a distracted soul. If your life is filled with noise, fear, media, comparison, anxiety, the whisper becomes harder to detect. And the solution is not demanding God shout, but learning to quiet yourself. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." And stillness is uncomfortable because it strips away distractions and confronts your restlessness. The silence may not be the absence of God, but the absence of your ability to slow down enough to perceive him. And yet, through all these possibilities, refinement, delayed obedience, endurance building, deeper intimacy, conviction, unseen warfare, one truth remains unshaken: God's silence is never equal to God's abandonment. Jesus himself cried out on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Quoting Psalm 22, entering into the human experience of perceived silence. Yet resurrection followed what felt like ultimate abandonment. If Christ endured a moment where heaven seemed quiet, your season of silence does not disqualify you from faith. It may actually align you more closely with him. So instead of interpreting silence as rejection, what if you saw it as invitation? Instead of assuming distance, what if you leaned closer? Instead of demanding immediate answers, what if you asked deeper questions? What is God forming in me? What is he revealing? What is he pruning? John 15:2 says he prunes every branch that bears fruit so it will be even more fruitful, and pruning feels like loss before it produces growth. The warning is this: if you let silence breed bitterness, you will withdraw. But if you let silence build trust, you will mature. Your struggle is not proof that God has left. It may be proof that he trusts you enough to grow you beyond dependency on constant affirmation. So hold your ground. Keep praying even when words feel dry. Keep obeying even when clarity is partial. Keep worshiping even when emotion is absent. Because the God who promised in Hebrews 13:5, "I will never leave you nor forsake you," has not changed his mind about you. The silence will not last forever, but what it produces in you can last a lifetime. And when the breakthrough finally comes, you will realize that heaven was not ignoring you. It was preparing you, shaping you, anchoring you in a faith that does not collapse when feelings fade. Stay in the struggle, stay in the word, stay in trust, because what feels like silence today may become the testimony that strengthens you tomorrow.